Luna is the latest descendant to be released alongside Ultimate Valby. She is the best support for any ability damage based descendant, or any descendant that needs a boost to their skill damage, reduce cooldowns, and regenerate their mana. Also, Luna is the first descendant that will require some skill, because you have to balance a rhythm game while trying to aim, shoot, and dodge your enemies. So imagine an ADHD brain like mine having to focus on little diamond shapes while trying to see if I'm hitting the target. I mean, I got used to it after playing her for 12 hours, learning her kit, and fully leveling her out with 9 catalysts. Yes, I know, I'm crazy, shut up. Moving on, I really like this descendant because for one, it isn't the usual type of playstyle. She's the most advanced descendant currently. A lot of people will compare her to Octavia from Warframe, but unlike Octavia, you don't have to teabag and sit in a corner. So let's start off with her passive to help you understand how she functions. Improvisation. When you activate a skill perfectly timed, you gain Inspiration Gauge. This is a unique resource to Luna, seen right under her mana. When you fill this bar up to the max, you're able to use an enhanced version of either skill, similar to Ajax. Enhanced versions of your skills will have new additional properties that further boost your support prowess. Swapping between skills builds up your inspiration gauge. However, you don't have to swap to different skills all the time. You can reactivate the same skill, and that counts towards a skill swap to charge your gauge. Now onto her skills. She has 4 skills tied to colors, and 3 of them can only be used if her first ability is active. You have green, red, blue, and purple. Referring them to colors will be easier for players to understand the buffs, so when you're in a team with Luna, you know what buffs are active. Green skill isn't visible to players. That only means she has her first skill active. Red aura means you do more damage. Blue means you get mana. And purple is cooldown reduction. They do more, but I'm keeping it simple for the TLDR people. She is a complicated yet easy to understand character, but for more information, let's start off with her first skill, Stage Presence. You equip a unique weapon, looking like Lucio's Soundwave Blaster. This unique weapon summon does have an animation that you can cancel by dodge rolling. When this weapon is active, you have a base magazine that also scales with your equipped weapon's modded magazine modules. The magazine you get only affects the initial starting magazine, but not the magazine you get when you swap skills. You also now get a minigame window in front of you. Let's first dissect this new HUD. You have an empty diamond reticle. This is where you have to time your shots with the colored diamonds. Each shot consumes your ammo from the unique weapon, and if you mistime the shots, you drain mana. And when you run out of mana, your weapon is then stowed and your ability goes on a cooldown. While you have this minigame window up, anything within the brackets is in line of sight of your shots. So the bullets you fire have some aim assist to help people out with aiming, because timing your shots while aiming can be a bit jarring. The other good part about this ability is that you can have it up indefinitely, and you can replenish your ammo pool by swapping between skills. This weapon is tech aligned, and it deals decent damage and can crit. So modding for crit on her is actually quite useful and beneficial, as you can be somewhat of a sustained damage dealer while maintaining your buffs. The unfortunate part about this skill is that you cannot hit those vulnerable parts when a boss is enraged. Also, hitting each shot perfectly increases your skill power modifier, further boosting your damage. The damage, unfortunately, does not scale with your equipped weapon mods, but rather descendant mods and reactor skill power and skill power modifiers. However, the weapon is affected by some unique special modules, the ultimate modules that give you a unique effect, where unfortunately you can only have one of those equipped mods. Now, the rest of her skills can only be activated if her unique weapon is out, and swapping between these different skills displays a new type of rhythm minigame. Each skill will have different timings to the minigames, and the further you get into your skills, the faster and more precise you have to be with your activation. The 3 buff skills are all singular and are not affected by any skill power modifiers, and are only there to provide you and allies buffs. These buffs have a range cap of 24 meters. Using both skill expansion and maximize range will cap it out. And the duration of these buffs are fixed to 14.5 seconds and cannot be increased, and only the enhanced versions of those skills are affected by duration. Unfortunately, activating any skill in their enhanced state does leave you vulnerable, as you're locked in an animation which you cannot cancel. So be aware where you activate the enhanced version of these skills. Allies can step into your buff radius to pick up the buffs, and the timer will keep resetting as long as they're in the circle. But as soon as they step out of the circle, their buff timer will start counting down. Luna has a skill module called Nimble Footsteps, which increases the range of your skills and increases Luna's and allies' movement speed. It grants you 10% per stack of the buffs, with a max of 20 stacks. Unfortunately, this range increase does not surpass the max 24 meters. However, it's always good to have movement speed. Each of the buffs you provide grants 2 versions of the buff. One for yourself, which is a smaller buff or a slightly different buff, while allies get a larger version of the buff. For second skill, Exciting Act, this grants yourself skill power modifier, while your allies gain a skill power boost ratio. The skill power boost ratio scales of a percentage of your max MP. The skill power modifier you get increases in amount when you land your shot successfully to the rhythm. The enhanced version of the skill grants allies skill power, skill critical hit rate, and crit damage. The skill power affects the base skill power boost ratio, and the crit rate increase is a final crit multiplier and multiplicative with modded crit values on your descendant. It took a 15% modded crit rate on a Glay to 100% max critical hit rate. This is her strongest buff, and you always want to use this in the enhanced form because it brings the most value for nuking and speedruns. The third skill, Relaxing Act, grants MP recovery to you and allies. Although in its enhanced state, it boosts the max MP you would recover and recovery amount per second, and grants a minus 56.1% skill cost reduction. This is for some people who would want to spam their skills while never having to worry about losing mana. And finally, the fourth skill, Cheerful Act. This simply reduces cooldown at base and is the fastest rhythm game out of all the 3. But hitting each note successfully as you hit the enemy, this skill now charges up your inspiration gauge, your unique resource. So this is something I like to start off with, then swap to my second skill in the enhanced state for a massive damage buff early on, or use it when we're prepping for a nuke session on the boss. Also, using this skill itself in its enhanced state refreshes all of your allies' ability cooldowns and gives a minus 40.9% cooldown reduction. Now, let's talk about stat priority when modding for Luna. The main topic here will be modding for skill cooldown or not. You don't need skilled cooldown on her at all, because hitting your notes right and timing them, cooldown reduction is never needed. So it's a massive skill issue moment if you have your skills go on a cooldown. Not only that, the only time skill cooldown would benefit you is if you want to spam skill swap to fill your inspiration gauge for an enhanced skill spam, but this isn't even needed. However, I do have a flex slot on the build for those who want to use skill cooldown, so they can bring their 4th skill up quicker for some inspiration gauge charging. Duration doesn't do anything for the base versions of your 3 buff skills, but the enhanced version only gains a 1.8 second increase to the enhanced version of the skill. However, modding for duration does affect the uptime of your Nimble Footsteps buff. With the support stuff out of the way, let's talk about some fun stuff. DPS Luna, where I use the Noise Surge Augment. This augment disables buffs to allies and turns Luna into a selfish DPS unit, but still tied to the rhythm game. Unfortunately, you still need to have your unique weapon active and turns all your buffs into DPS abilities, allowing you to spam them and deal damage. They now all have a unique effect that only benefits you. Hitting each skill to deal damage charges up the inspiration gauge while consuming mana per cast, and each skill cast in the enhanced state will have new animations, and the best part is that you can move while these animations are active. When you fail to hit the note perfectly on time, the ability goes on a cooldown. Otherwise, you never need cooldown on this. Each ability will have stacks and scale differently. They all now have a stackable buff that stacks up to a max of 26 stacks, and the enhanced version of the skills recover 50% mana and shields. The red skill now grants you skill crit hit rate per stack of a successful note trigger. Blue gives you crit damage, and purple grants you skill power modifier. The best ones to use colors for more damage are blue or purple. I personally prefer blue for the crit damage increase, and it's decently fast but not that fast to trigger, and I can move around while nuking everything in sight. So now that you understand how she works, hopefully, let's take a look at how I've built her. Alright, here we are in the build section while also demonstrating some gameplay loops alongside some tips and tricks. I'm going to first showcase the support build because that's what Luna is mainly known for. She's not a big damage dealer like Bunny or any other descendants that's focused around building DPS, because she is the one that enables those DPS units to go even further. Taking a look at the info section of our descendants, you can see I do have max range here. This is the maximum amount you can reach. 46% critical hit rate because we want to crit with our first ability to then trigger a special mod. I will showcase that mod. And when we deal a critical hit, we're going to multiply that damage with our critical hit damage. This is our skill tab where you can see how amplified our skills are. Our non-attribute boost ratio, and of course tech boost ratio, because we want to focus on tech when we're in the support build. The three abilities do not deal damage, but only provide you with buffs. I do have a negative skill power modifier, which I'll showcase in a bit. Now onto the reactor. It is a tech reactor. Unfortunately, it does have skill range. This was the god roll before I maxed my range, but you want to have that additional skill attack against Colossus, which is very nice for that first ability, and try to get the second substat to be crit damage or critical hit rate, or even some additional tech or non-attribute boosts. Now it has the clairvoyance mounting. You want it to be a special weapon. Special weapons are orange ammo weapons. Why do we want special ammo weapons? It's because of this unique mod right here, Analysis Master. On hits, enemies' firearm critical hit resistance is then reduced by 25%. This is nice to have as a support. Now, if you don't care too much about this and you want some support for yourself, you can increase movement speed even further with Brisk Walk. So these are some two special mods you want to have here. The other thing you may have noticed, I do have Magazine. Now, the Magazine perks over here only affect the initial cast of the first ability. Remember, when you swap between weapons, you do increase your ammo pool. So without these mods, when I activate my first skill, I will start off with 32 in the magazine. Swapping skills perfectly will grant me 10 additional ammo, and it caps out at 55 ammo. It cannot go past this. Doesn't matter where you swap back to, it will always be at 55 ammo. So with these magazine mods equipped, my initial magazine, when I first activate my ability, will be at 56, as you can see right there. And swapping between my abilities will go back down to 55. So if you deplete your magazine by shooting, and then when you swap to another skill, you will get 55. It adds on 10 every time. There is one downside to playing Luna, besides being a skill issue moment for some other players, is that her music is tied to sound effects. So this can irritate some people, especially me. I do not like how it's tied to sound effects. I wish it had another tab, or it was tied to music. So how do we play this support build? Of course, you want to have your first ability active, so when you activate it, dodge roll to animation cancel that. You want to activate your fourth skill on note. So when it hits that gray diamond, that's when you have it. And look at my inspiration gauge. It's charging up when I hit enemies along with my timed shots. Now that I have my inspiration gauge filled up, I can switch to my big damage buff. That's when everybody is able to deal crazy amounts of damage, and along with myself. But of course, my teammates get the bigger benefits. My coverage is huge, and my allies just have to touch the ring and then they get the buff. So continuing with the build, I do have a rainbow set. Rainbow set meaning I don't have a full set bonus. I do have max HP right here with my auxiliary. You want to get as much HP as possible. I am still level 21. Of course, when you get higher, you're going to see a bit more gain on your HP. For my sensor, I do have max HP, max MP, and MP recovery in combat. This is very important. You want to have that max MP and MP recovery in combat. This helps out with your buffs. And my last two pieces are from the Annihilator set. This gives me 5.7% duration. Of course, the memory gives me max HP along with defense and that MP recovery modifier, alongside that max HP processor and toxin resistance. You can have max shield if you want, but a damage resistance is always good to have. So moving on to that build, my range is max at 24 meters thanks to skill expansion and maximize range. This reduces my skill power modifier, but that doesn't matter. We're a support right now. We're not here as the main, but as some sustain DPS. With these two mods, it makes the range increase on this irrelevant, but the range increase from this doesn't matter. You do have to build up stacks to get range. But the best thing about this is that it grants everybody in my team movement speed, and that stacks up. And you can see my duration's at 14 seconds. I get 4 additional seconds thanks to skill extension and the Annihilator set. Yes, you don't get that much from Luna, but anything helps. And with all that duration, I do get 2 additional seconds on my enhanced skills. As you can see right there, went from 5 to 7. Everything else is still set to 14.5 seconds. Of course, for survivability, HP, defense, the usual. And for my skill power, I'm running non-attribute specialist. For those who feel that they want a bit more skill cooldown reduction, you can always replace non-attribute specialist with focus on non-attribute. You do lose some skill power, but gain that skill cooldown reduction. You may have noticed I am running multi-talented over here. Here is just to amplify the damage on my 1. When using singular active skill, for 5 seconds, I gain all attribute damage by 30% for 5 seconds. It's nice to have if you want some additional sustained damage with your 1. However, this is the flex slot. You can always replace this for skill cooldown or skill cost. But other than that, I do have 3 crit mods here. Skill Insight for the critical hit rate, Emergency Measures for the crit rate and crit damage, alongside Front Lines for the critical hit damage and crit rate. All of this is to boost my crit rate on my first ability. So when we crit, we deal some additional damage on the side. And now let's take a look at DPS Luna, where you deal damage with your abilities. Yes, we just killed those enemies by using our buff skills. And when we get our enhanced versions, right, we do even more damage. Yay! Now she's something similar to Bunny, but not as strong as Bunny. And because her 3 abilities are singular aligned, we want to have a singular reactor. And the reactor over here has skill effect range and crit damage. Range here is actually good because we don't have it max at 2 times. I do have the Enduring Legacy mounted. You don't even have to use the weapon. You just need to have your ability active because we're not shooting with our first ability anymore. We're only dealing damage with our other 3 abilities. Notice how I can switch between them and none of the abilities go on cooldown. And this is why skill cooldown is not necessarily needed on Luna. For the component set, it's all rainbow. For the component set, it's all a rainbow set. Here, I decided to switch it out just to give it a bit more HP. Now, moving on to the build. The build revolves around Noise Surge. You want to have this augment on. You can see some of the mods are slightly similar. We still have skill expansion. Instead of maximize range, I went with amplification control, just to give me range without losing skill power modifier. Adding onto that skill range and some skill cost will frugal mindset. I do have focus on non-attribute alongside focus on singular because these are singular abilities. And instead of running a regular defense mod, I'm running spear and shield to increase my skill power by 8%. Always nice to have some additional skill power. And of course, sticking with our crit mods. And for the abilities that I would like to use for this is either the 4th ability for that skill power modifier for even more damage, or skill crit damage with the 3rd skill. You don't have to worry about running out of mana thanks to that max MP, and when you reach an enhanced state of the ability, you get refunded some mana. And of course, frugal mindset is there for that little bit of skill cost reduction. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, these are my Luna setups, one for support and one for DPS. I really like this Descendant because she's different from your usual, haha, get out of your way type of Descendants, and makes you think about the setup. But of course, for people who do not like Luna or find her too difficult, that is absolutely fine. Everybody enjoys the game differently. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this has been it from me. I do hope you've enjoyed and learned something from this video. But then again, if you do like everything here, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more First Descendant content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace. Bye-bye now.